What's going on, guys? Rival here, back trying to be consistent in talking about the good and bad of Pokemon. Today it's time to talk about something I feel is not only a positive for the fanbase of Pokemon as a whole, but also a need as well. The fan games. For those who are unaware of what a fan game is, it's a game created by the players of the series with no involvement of the original teams or creators. You may be thinking, why are games created by the fanbase key to Pokemon as a whole? Well, if you want a short answer, there is one. But that kills the magic of a video, doesn't it? Instead, let's get into it. Here is 5 reasons why fan-made games in Pokemon are integral to the series. Just before we start, make sure to like and subscribe this video. I say this all the time, but discussions about Pokemon are so fun and I love to see the comments that I get on videos. Make sure to put down below what your favourite fan game is. Okay, number 1. The exploration of concepts that the series can't. I touched upon this in my recent video, make sure to go check that one out by the way, but have you ever wanted to play the bad guy? Have you ever wanted to build an evil team and become the best bad guy there ever was? Well, of course you have, otherwise you wouldn't be punching reporters in the face when playing Mass Effect, Renegade for life. Or people like Vegeta wouldn't be arguably the most popular character of all time. Same goes for Lelouch and countless other characters who are actually the bad guys but well liked. So being the bad guy in Pokemon is definitely an idea that should be touched upon and expanded upon in the Pokemon world. But the series simply can't, because regardless of the age of the fanbase nowadays, after all it has been around since 1996, no matter how many fans Pokemon has as a whole due to the variety of ages, it simply can't touch on this concept. But fan games can. I remember my mind being blown by this concept and getting to be the bad guy, and then Red kicking my backside. It was quite interesting to be on the opposite end of that one. This isn't just limited to things such as being the bad guy. Concepts such as Pokemon horror games, which can create a completely different atmosphere from anything you've ever played in the series. Being your own gym leader of whatever specific type you want to use, to a game being literally about nuclear meltdown or warfare. Fan games can just touch upon concepts that no Pokemon game can, and that simply comes down to age rating and formula. If the formula isn't broken in terms of making money, why would you fix it? The main games continue to skyrocket in sales, the side games generally do well, the merch is so big you can hardly go to a shop without seeing Pokemon merch, so why would they risk their brand to experiment on doing a game where you can steal others' Pokemon, and annoy the parents who already say Pokemon's a bad influence? If you want to see a concept, a fan game has been made of it or probably will be made of it. Number 2, fixing of errors. A lot of Pokemon games feature errors or problems that cause issues in gameplay or enjoyability, and I wish I could just sit there and say that's just for the older games. No, even the newer games. Let's say for example in Fire Red you get your Golbat. It's ready to evolve, but what happens? Oh, you can't. Because it's not included in the dex because it's a Johto Pokemon, it means you can't get that Crobat. You can't access all these islands without cheat codes because they were special only events. You can't run into early generations, making it tedious to walk around in. Well, fan games have got you covered. So many fan games exist that improve on original versions of games and make the game more enjoyable. Games even exist that allow you to capture all the Pokemon up until that point, such as definitive versions of Emerald and Platinum, so on and so forth. Pokemon fan games have really paved the way to allow for the audience to experience something like they never have before. Number 3, increased difficulty. For those who haven't watched my most recent video, you will find a lot of these points kind of tie in with what I would change about Pokemon. Now those who have watched and who have played fan games before know which game is going to be mainly focused on here, but for those who aren't aware of it, let's talk about Kaizo Emerald and Renegade Platinum. Both exist in the realm of adding incredible difficulty to the aforementioned game's original counterparts. Some will argue that parts are very grindy instead of just challenging, and I will not deny that, but something that is very key to touch upon is that the difficulty of Pokemon has always been a talking point within the fanbase for many years. We generally do not see Pokemon as a challenge, especially in a general playthrough. Things exist such as Nuzlocke, Wedlocke, Caterpie solo locks, Magikarp's the Goat locks, simply to provide more difficulty, but on a general basis the actual games are not seen to be hard. Pokemon fan games can help provide more of a challenge, something you have looked for that you can't get in the actual series of games otherwise. We can definitely sit here and have a discussion about what games are challenging and what games are more focused on grinding, but at a minimum fan games can provide a bit more difficulty than what you'd expect from a general Pokemon game. Number 4, old style games left behind. Think about looking to the past and missing the old style of games of a franchise. I'm going to go off a bit of a tangent here, but don't mind me. A franchise I absolutely growing up was Dragon Ball Z. Specifically, the Budokai series got me absolutely hooked on the series. 3 in particular always strikes in my mind, the ability to use Gogeta for the first time, so on and so forth. Heck, if you check my channel header, you will see for a fact that Dragon Ball Z is there. Should I go onto Twitch and play Dragon Ball Z games? Okay, anyways, back to the topic. The fighting style was something that I absolutely loved. But naturally, technology progresses, which is completely fine, and progression shouldn't be halted just because you prefer an older concept. But the reality is, the style of gameplay it transferred over to was not something I preferred as a whole. That's definitely why I liked Fighter Z. And for some people, they will feel the exact same about Pokemon, as it becomes more open-ended, more expansive, and more graphically capable of so much more, even if they don't want to show that off. The reality is, sometimes people just prefer how simplistic Pokemon once was. Things such as the original gameplay, the art styles, and that is categorically the fault of nobody. There's constantly new fan games being made that fit this concept. Games are being made that still provide a new experience in an old idea that's still loved. It allows people to still experience the ability of playing their favourite style on their favourite series. Technology is going to keep improving. Gameplay is going to keep improving. Again, even if the bugs of Scarlet and Violet don't show that. But I digress. And it shouldn't be halted because naturally things get better and better. It just doesn't mean that people are going to prefer or like the new style. Number 5. Time constraints eliminated. Pokemon games in general sometimes struggle due to a simple issue that ends up ruining the experience or idea. And that's the time constraints from publishers, consoles, or executives that ideally ask for a game to be ready for a particular time frame. Again, the one that always sticks out to mind with Pokemon is the idea that this game must be out at the end of the year for the anniversary. So naturally teams don't have enough time to test or prepare a product to be ready in enough time, which leads to a lot of bugs and release that are then sorted out in post. That's not a defend on Pokemon Team or any franchise in general, by the way, nor does it excuse it from happening. It's just something to take note of because it can seriously affect someone's enjoyment of a franchise as a whole. In fan games, however, that is not necessarily the case. The people creating them set their own deadlines and how they work for them. People may request it and want it, and there's certainly a big portion that will try and push someone to make it. But at the end of the day, you work within your own time frame that can be set by you and not by anybody else. Now, I do not know the pressures of having to make a fan game, especially one that has a lot of hype or fan base already. So I do want to highlight I could be slightly wrong on this particular point, but at a minimum, the person working on it is not having an executive breathing down on their necks. There's not it has to be out on this day or you're fired. So therefore there's a bit more of a leeway to go, this needs more time, so therefore I'm taking more time. I always say this, but I'd much rather the time be taken and things go well and smooth than to have a rushed game that is quite broken and needs to be fixed later in post. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's actually quite a short answer to this. The reason why fan games are so important is because Pokemon is too successful. Why would any issues the series currently faces ever be changed? Pokemon is the most successful media franchise of all time. Its merchandise is absolutely everywhere. I can't go into a shop nowadays without generally seeing something Pokemon related. Its games are successful. Everything about it makes the money. Pokemon can't change because it doesn't need to. It therefore leaves gaps in its success that can be filled by fan games. So support them, give them time, appreciate it. Think on YouTube nowadays the amount of modifications of games that exist. It makes the fan base better as a whole. Because as much as it would be great to see a full-on version of Pokemon Team Rocket Edition, where I can usurp Giovanni to become Pokemon's most evil individual, it's simply not going to happen. And I do want to point out that doesn't necessarily mean I don't believe there's a negative side of fan-based games. It's just important to note that they fill a gap in the market that will never be filled by the main series otherwise. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe because it really helps me out. Comment down below your favourite fan game. If there's any topic you would like for me to cover, let me know in the comments below. See you guys.